I often ask myself if what Buddhism and Stoicism ask of us is completely unreasonable. That to say that in some regard, a homeless person and a millionaire who has everything they want could or should be equally happy based simply on some awakening into the idea that our emotions need not be whatsoever connected or correlated to what's going on around us. It's a very strange and scary notion, because I think many people, when they think of being enlightened or stoically divorced from their surroundings, they think of becoming a kind of blunt instrument that doesn't react, that isn't engaged, that in some way doesn't care and can't make accurate assessments. And so I ask myself, would it be possible for someone to exist who was both emotionally divorced from their surroundings and therefore able to feel just as happy in solitary confinement in a prison as when surrounded by friends and family and great worldly success, while also being able to make accurate assessments of what's going on, that person could say, I'm in solitary confinement, this is terrible, I'm not escaping this reality, I'm in the worst situation anyone could be in on some objective measures, and yet my emotions aren't connected to that accurate assessment of my environment. Is that possible? I think that's the question I ask myself most as I try to become more stoic, as I try to create a wider gap between what happens to me and how I feel. It's especially dicey in connection to other people. I find as I meditate and subjectively become more tranquil, more divorced from my most visceral emotions when bad things happen to me, that actually I'm not really sure how I can better keep myself from being taken advantage of. I very much do worry that meditation and the spiritual journey can make pushovers of us. Because if someone does something horrible to me, and I forgive them even while it's happening, and I feel empathy for them and understand exactly why they're doing this, and that very likely I would do the exact same thing in the same situation, I then don't have any visceral anger to fuel a proper response or a boundary setting. So in light of this question of how separated our emotions should be from our visceral reactions to what happens to us, is often a question of how hard your life is. If you endure horrible things day after day after day, if your emotions correspond to what happens to you, you won't make it. On the other hand, if great and wonderful things happen to you every day, if every meal you eat is delicious, if every person treats you with great respect and esteem, luck always goes your way, your emotions can be as reactive as they want, as you want. If you simply react immediately, you'll be happy all the time. But very few of us live in that reality, and that dynamic also answers the question of why people who live in comfort are generally so much weaker. And as someone who has quickly gone from a very easy, relaxing life to a very challenging one, I see just how weak I became. The distance between my emotions and the outside world got thinner and shorter, bit by bit, because things were going well. Day by day, there were many small, petty pleasures, and now that those have been stripped away, I see just how weak immediate emotional responses make me. So whether you like the idea or not, that on some level, homeless people and millionaires could be equally happy if they held the right attitude towards the world, the truth is that's a practical reality. That's a practical idea. Not so much for the millionaire, but for the homeless person, for the person in solitary confinement, for the person struggling. And I believe that's why almost all spiritual teachers have a period of extreme solitude and pain, where they go into the valley of death, where they go into the mountains, into the cave, and endure cold and wet and rain in a complete lack of comfort, a complete lack of company. And when they come back down, their emotions, their inner state is forever separated from what's going on in the material world, in the outside world. And I think that's generally the story of spiritual development. And that's why I'm beginning to think it's next to impossible if you live a life that doesn't demand of you that you separate your emotions from the outside world and what happens. There will never be a great enough incentive to make you let go of that unless you live for some period of life of struggle. Of course, that can be self-imposed, but all of this is to say, beware of a comfortable life. Because if ever that comfortable life is stripped away, you will find yourself completely naked and exposed to the cold of whatever may come. There will be no protective psychic layer between you and the tragedies that might befall you. This is what people mean when they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And this is what people say when they say, I'm glad that that horrible, horrible thing happened to me. It made me who I am. Because we all have an intuitive sense that if we had not learned from pain, we would be a much less estimable and interesting and complete creature. As long as there's an immediate reaction to what happens to you, you will always be at the cause of the world in general. You'll hardly be able to originate any ideas, any projects, any movements, because you'll merely be a reflection of what has just happened, of what has come before you. And it's in this way, too, that struggle is linked with creativity. So if you're struggling, if you're in pain, dwell in that pain with an eye to separating yourself from it, from exploring the degree to which that pain is entirely self-generated. Because so long as you believe that the world has a direct path to changing your inner state, that path will forever be open, and you will forever be at the effect of all that goes on around you.